Hello, all you cosmic travelers and wanderers. This is Darlene Van de Grift and K. Melissa Waterman, inviting you to join us today in our episode of Expansion from Within, Exploring Multidimensionality.
Let me introduce you to my friend and dear colleague, Darlene Van de Grift. She is a lifetime experiencer, a medical intuitive, and a multidimensional mediator for over 35 years. She's also an author, an artist, a teacher, and a mentor for spiritually invested people.
And K. Melissa Waterman is my friend and colleague, and she's an intuitive mentor, a spiritual teacher. She also works with energy on many levels. In the past, Melissa has worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza on his research team.
Join us on our journey of meeting multidimensional beings, exploring what it means to be human, and expanding our spiritual evolution. We have a guest today. I'm very happy to introduce. This is Isha. She's from Switzerland. She's a colleague of mine, and she offers tremendous gifts in energetic healing and body work. Thank you for being with us, Isha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to be here.
Today, we're going to talk about decarnation. Do you want to talk about how we came up with this title for today?
Well, we were looking at the incarnation. I don't know if it was the evolves or a part of myself, but came in, well, then we're going to do decarnation. And so I know that that is not a proper word, but that is what we're dealing with today.
We had originally named this topic the death process, but realized that there were so many other things besides the death process that we wanted to talk about. It really falls better under the heading of decarnation. So that's our title today. The first question that we have today is, what's the difference between spirit guides or ghosts and multidimensionals?
So the spirit guides is a chosen position, whether that is before you incarnate, and they do change. People think that you come in or you're surrounded by your spirit guides and they last you throughout your life, and that is not necessarily so. The spirit guides are those that you can either choose to have that they're not in physical form. They may be part of your family. They may be part of even as a multidimensional piece of you, future or past. They come in as guides to direct us, to send us synchronicities, to help us to understand ourselves more and the path that we're on or the mission that we've claimed so that we don't forget it. The multidimensionals can be a piece of that, but they don't necessarily have to be our spirit guides. We can have access to them through meditation or visualization or even contact as a multidimensional. They haven't been assigned or haven't been invited in to be a spirit guide. And then there's the ghosts that a lot of people are skeptical about or they're fearful of. And those ghosts are, whether you see them or not, they're an energy that can be around us. It depends on where our connection is to them. You know, you can go to homes that have ghosts in them. There's all that out on the media of seeing paranormal information and visions or apparitions, I think it is, where they see something that is not human, or they see something that is, an energy field that comes in through cameras and things. Some of that ghosting is thought form, some of that ghosting is disincarnates that have hung around and that are not in physical form and that enjoy in some way to still be here.
Can you talk more about what a disincarnate is?
People seem to think that they're stuck, and maybe some of them are, but a disincarnate is somebody that leaves, or an energy that leaves, a being that leaves, that dies, that has moved on. They choose to be here for whatever reason that is. Some of them are pranksters. Those ghosts or disincarnates can be pranksters. They can be energy suckers. They want something from the living, and it's not about being fearful of them. It's just about understanding them. Like, I think on every level, if you have a deeper understanding of what is around us in the invisible field, as well as the visible field, as well as multidimensionals, if you have a better understanding of their purpose, or their intention, then you're in a better, wiser place of understanding the world around us that we may not have much information about.
The word disincarnate has always had a negative connotation to me, when I think it means not having a body.
Right.
Somehow multidimensionals don't have a body, but we don't consider them disincarnate.
No, we wouldn't call them that. Humans get stuck on language for them to make sense of, oh, this is good and this is bad. This is right and this is wrong. It's not like that in the other dimensions. It is what it is. So a disincarnate, it's a energy or a being. Some people call it a soul level that leaves, and they choose to stay here, or we may say they get stuck here. Then they have to define their purpose of why they are here. And some of them are what we see as ghosts. I can't say they're malicious, but they like to stir up things.
Right.
And if you're attracted to that, if you're curious about that, then you're going to get more of it, because it's
Right.
that law of attraction. You're going to get more of it.
Mm-hmm. What would you say the difference is between connecting with the dead versus connecting with a spirit guide or a multidimensional being?
So a spirit guide it's an intentional, we would call it maybe your higher self. Some people call it the higher self, where you are in a meditative place. You're looking for some kind of information, affirmation. You're looking for something, am I on the right path? And so you ask in a meditation for information or for your spirit guides. Some people know the names of their spirit guides, so they call them forward for more of a conversation or an information or something that they are centered, or they resonate more with whatever they're asking. So it comes in different ways. It's not always languaging. That's like the spirit bringing in your guidance, which can also be multidimensional, right? You can also bring in parts of yourself that are multidimensional that are not your guidance, but you do it in the same form. Whether that's meditation or visualization, or, some people do psychedelics, right? In order to connect to a higher being or part of themselves. But then there's the talking to the dead or communicating with those that have crossed over. When that happens for me, it feels like a very different place. It feels like it's not the same space within me, because I may not know these people that are coming forward, because a client or whatever wants information. So I may not know who that person is, but it feels like their imprint comes forward of where they are in that moment, or what's unfinished for them, or do they have a message? It feels like it comes in as a bubble of information. Sometimes I do see them in my mind's eye about where they are. They're much younger now, or they look like this, or they're pointing to this. It comes in visual or auditory. It's a different space, at least in my it's a different space of how they come in, rather than the connection that we would have with our multidimensionals or our spirit guides.
Isha, can you speak to your experience? I know that you connect with your spirit guides and are working with some interdimensionals.
Yeah, I was wondering as I was listening to you, Darlene, is it possible, in your opinion, that connecting with a dead or crossed over can turn into connecting with a spirit guide, which means, like, can the dead move into a spirit guide?
If we take a look at the spirit guides, if they're in our family lineage, if it's our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our fathers, or whatever, they are out of physical form, right? They are multidimensional or passed over. They've already crossed over. So can they become spirit guides? That's the flow of spirit guides, right? So you may come in with 2 or 3 of them that you're aware of till you're 20, 30, 40. And then because we are in our own evolution, those that have crossed over, that we know that they've crossed over, can come in as a spirit guide for us. My connection to my mother when she passed, she needed to go on. In fact, it's going to be the 10th year anniversary in 2 days. When she crossed over, she came and said, okay, I have work to do. where she feels now, it's 10 years later, I feel like she's come back a little bit more than where she has been in the last like 8 years, because her work of whatever that was might be complete for her. So I feel closer to her, that she's more present. Is she a spirit guide? I don't know. I don't think so. I think she's more of an observer, but there feels like there's a different shift in her energy from where she was coming closer. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, thank you.
How long after passing do you think it is that we can connect with someone who's crossed?
They're in their own, it depends on how they passed. There is a process that they go through, and it depends on how centered they are in the understanding of what's on the other side. Are they in angst about that? Was it an accident? That process can take anywhere from, like, people have called me and said, and there was just somebody this week, my mother passed 3.5 weeks ago, and she was available, but not to discuss certain things because she's still in a process of understanding what she's left and her life and where she wants to go. I would usually say 3 months, and there's no time there, right? So by then it feels like they are in a more centered place of understanding more about themselves or their choices, and ready to explore more or come in to heal.
Can you say more about the process? I understand that it's different if a person is surprised, if they walked out and got hit by a car, versus having a long illness and they're having visitations and they're being prepared on another level. Can you say anything about the process of passing?
So humanity is held at a certain level of accountability. We just don't do it often in the physical form. When we cross over and we're not in the physical form, there is a place of accountability, and that isn't purgatory, or that isn't condemnation in any way. You revisit what you chose to have in this lifetime, the choices that you made, what was completed and what wasn't. And it's not about, oh, well, what do you want to do about that? It's more about looking, like as if you were looking at a book of your whole life. And where do you see that you might not have cleaned up yet? Where do you see that you could have done better? Where do you see that you did a really great job? It's that acknowledgement of who you are and accountable for the choices of what brought us to our final destination of leaving our physical form. So however long that takes, I would imagine somebody that has a very, very, very full life with other people, and it maybe has been in leadership or any of that, I would imagine that there's more accountability for what they've chosen to do that affected not only them, but others.
Can you talk about what happens when someone passes from suicide?
A lot of people feel that those beings, those souls, the humans that choose to leave because it is too difficult here, and they're judged, others around, that they're cowards, that it's harder to live than it is to die. And some of that is true in some way. But they're in their choice for whatever reason that is. It's too difficult, it's too painful, it's whatever that is for them. So when they cross over, it's not that different, but there's a deeper dive into the accountability. You chose to end your life, and it feels like the spirit guides are more around them. We need to understand that choice. Where did that come from? Because there's got to be a depth of woundedness or pain that is not in the natural process of passing. There's something that is going on with them that feels like in the multidimensional or spirit level or guidance level, understanding that more for the soul level or the being that has just done it, it needs to be cleared. It needs to be cleared for them before they can even be accountable for anything else.
I'm thinking of the bardos and the idea that in the Buddhist tradition that a person needs to work that out. They reincarnate to work that out, to review that choice, and that they can get stuck, that they have to keep incarnating until they make a different choice. And it's felt a little punishing to me and a little similar to the Catholic or Christian idea that one goes to hell if they make this choice. I've never felt in alignment with that. I feel like a person is freed when they pass.
That is a fear-based perception, and it does keep us under control. Or maybe if we had stubbed toe, we'd commit suicide, right? Sometimes those places feel like they've been put in place to keep us in our bodies no matter what, because if you're afraid that you're going to get stuck in something, that punishment, that hell, that whatever, it does help us to not go there. But the reality or the truthfulness of that, I don't believe is as real as what they're saying. I believe that if you take your own life, which my father did, there is that deeper dive of the pain level, but you don't get stuck there unless you choose, right? We all have choice, even after death, unless you choose to say, you know what, I really need to revisit that again. I need to have another life that is similar or is as painful so that maybe I can choose to not do it. What resources, what tools do I need in my next life if I do that, if I choose to do that? But I don't think it's anybody telling you you have to because you're a bad person.
It sounds to me like in this place where you are reviewing that there's no judgment of the choices. You look at the choices, you get to review the choices, but there's no, well, you shouldn't have made that choice.
Well, listening to you, Darlene, I was just wondering, do you think that the choice of ending one's life can be made in unison with one's spirit guides?
Yes. If you're in a terminal illness and you know where that's going to end, you don't need to do that to your body, right? You don't want to do that to your body. And you're in tuned and have been working, whether that's 3 months or 30 years, with the understanding of your spirit guides, then yes, they're not there to tell us, oh, you can't do that. They're there to support us in a way that aligns with the best that we make a choice about. So if we say this is what we want, it's the same as when you put down that pet, doing it because they're in pain, they're in their suffering, right? So you as their spirit guide in some way is having that connection with them to say, we know that this is best for you. So that's where the Ho'opono can come in. I'm sorry that we have to do this. I'm sorry, but it's that connection to something higher or the spirit part of that being to say, or themselves, right? To say, this is my choice because I don't want to suffer anymore.
The choice would be in love, in the realm of love, not hate or not anger or some other lower emotion.
Right.
But
And they're not going to abandon you. They will support it in the understanding. If you did a deep meditation on your going into a death process, to say this is what I want or whatever, then synchronicity and it supports it rather than saying, oh, sorry, we don't agree with you. You need to do this on your own because that doesn't fit into the spiritual world. That doesn't work that way.
that makes so much sense. Is there anything that would be good for us to know about this place, this life between lives?
Well, there is life between lives. Life between our next incarnation. It feels like a giant library where they can investigate and learn and choose. Do they want to incarnate? When? What is the best time for them? Do they have a purpose that they want to serve that might be in this galactic field of library information? You know, do they want to come in 300 years from now? Do they want to come in on Earth? You're in the field with no limitation, which is like that galactic library. You spend that time learning. You spend that time, you know, I don't want to ever go back into being a human. Okay, great. What do you want to do? And do you want to stay here? Do you want to be a teacher in the field? Do you want to be a multidimensional being that you don't incarnate, but you're there for someone else? It's endless of the possibilities that they have in that interim of when you choose to incarnate, whether that incarnating as a human being or incarnating as something else. It's anything about coming into physical form.
I'm often curious why I chose to come back into this dense space. And I'm sure it's for all the lessons that I've learned here. But I like the idea of that. Having all of the galactic library at my fingertips sounds like a lot of fun. Isha, I know that you are here today because you have a question and an experience, and feel free to share it with us.
Just as I'm thinking about my experience, there are like so many aspects of it that I want to ask your opinion about, Darlene, but I'm going to share my experience first, which is I sometimes work with crossed over souls for clients. Sometimes crossed over souls just come to me spontaneously. And so in that one meditation, a crossed over soul came, and he is the father of a friend of mine, and I've never met the father. And I was taught in my energy healing and shamanic healing training to guide crossed over souls into the eternal light where they can rest in peace. So when I offered to do that with this father, he said that that's not his job. It's his to actually stay around the plane of Earth in order to look after the beings who have come into very short incarnations on Earth and who have left, meaning abortions and miscarriages and early infant death. That actually left a very beautiful and sweet feeling in me because I have had miscarriages myself. It was just so kind of comforting to know that there's a place for these beings to go and be looked after. I have a few questions around that. And the first question actually is, what's your take on the eternal light? Do you think there is a space that is just eternal light where the beings can rest?
Comes up is that it doesn't profit anyone in the eternal resting place. We are not designed as a spirit being to be eternally in rest. There's always something to do. There's always knowledge. There's always evolution in some way, even on the spiritual level of what needs to be done. What do I want? Yes. Is there periods of rest? Absolutely. It's that place of the light, going to the light is that place when you finally leave this physical form. It is such a relief. It is like the light, right? You go into an area that is white, that is bright, that is calm, that is peaceful, that is loving, so that you are invited in. That's one piece of it. But it is also that what we just talked about is that going into the light, it's the light of information. It's a light of wisdom. It's a light of understanding. So can we view it as we transcend into the space of the cosmic organization, the cosmic information, that galactic library? We move into that, which is lit up for us. And some scientists believe that there's a part in our brain that when we pass, that light is because of what the brain is doing and shutting down in some way, because the heart stops, the breath stops. So it's a physical light. It's a synapsis that goes off. That may be true, but that is the entering into the other realms or the other fields or the light that exists outside the physical form. It's like the door that we walk through from the physical to the non-physical is bright and lit up and welcoming. So when you talk about the father of your friend, it is something, because these are very short timelines. So you take an aborted child, or you take a miscarriage, or even a child that has been stillborn. Those are very short timelines, sometimes weeks to just a few months or 9 months, right? So they're not living their, what we would assume would be their life. And yet we don't know what they chose prior to even the incarnation of the sperm and the egg, that fertilization. We don't know if they chose to have a short timeline. Did they want to experience something? Did they come here with the hopes of experiencing something, and then a mother's choice says no, and they have to be aligned with that? So their process, it's more warm and welcoming. We get it. You didn't get the opportunity to, so is there emotions about that? Do you have feelings about that? And can we process that before you go into, oh, what do I want to do next? Or is there something that happened in the womb experience that created you to be a stillborn? What was that, so that you can have a deeper understanding? Because there's so much that happens in our womb state that sets the tone for the rest of our life. Not being loved, or being, for me, it was being invisible. My mother never told anybody till she was 6 months old because I was supposed to be aborted. So invisibility carries through the rest of my life, of how to be visible, wanting to be visible, but terrorized. If I'm visible, I'm going to be killed. Those places, and your friend's father, that feels like he's a warm, comforting blanket to them, to know that it's not just this, oh, that didn't have any meaning. Your 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months didn't have any meaning. Yes, it did. It had meaning to that being, to that short timeline. It had meaning, but they're not pushed into being accountable because they might not have any accountability. They haven't experienced that. So it feels like it's very different, and staying within without going to the light to say, oh, what am I going to do next? It feels like him choosing, or being chosen for whatever reason his history is about, that he could stay here and comfort and be in that interim. When these beings leave, they could be a warm blanket for them. He could be an understanding for them. He can help them. And what does that give him? Because it's always a give and take. In any relationship, it's a give and take. It's never always, oh, let me do this for you, and I'm just this benevolent being that is doing this for you. And it's not about that. He's going to get something from it too. And then when it's time for him to move on, I'm sure he will, or he won't. He'll stay and feel happy and content with where he's at.
And would that warm blanket be like a part of this library of endless possibilities?
Yes. There's nothing for them to be 100% accountable for when they haven't even experienced life at its fullest, right? They haven't even taken the breath of life. There's a different space for them.
So do you think that these beings who have had a very short incarnation, or would you name that an incarnation at all?
Well, they come in, yes, they're here in some physical form. They're not just spirit in the womb. They're in a physical form, so they incarnated.
Right. So if they have a very short incarnation, do you think that would be their choice to have this short length of incarnation, or do you think that something went wrong?
Yes, I think that you can choose to say before you even get here, I know that this is the possibility coming into this particular mother or father. I know that this is the possibility because of their body, mom's body, or because I'm not going to be wanted, or because mom's going to be a drug addict and I'm going to be aborted at 4 months old, or whatever that is. So I think you have some kind of choice in that, but not always. If I take a look at my incarnation, there were 2 of us, and I was okay up until my 3rd month, when my sister decided to leave because it wasn't going to work for 2 of us. And then my mother's toxicity. See, I could have come in with the understanding I might not make it, which I think was true. I might not make it based on her choice, but her choice was to keep me, just hide me. But I was hidden from everything, not just the outside world. When her toxicity hit me at 3 months old, there was no heartbeat that I could hear from her. I was wide awake and wondering, how the freak do I put this body together when there's no spiritual information, there's no manual, there's no anything. I didn't have the awareness that the body would do it alone, that you're in your own way of forming yourself. For me, it felt like I had to get it right to put everything together, to keep that connection. Her choice made a change in maybe what I thought that I was coming in for, to not exist. We're at we can call it a disadvantage, a mercy. We're at a place that as an infant, as an embryo, that we come into a place that we're in another body. So they have choice. That body has choice. So do you, but the body also has choice. So you're now being affected by someone else's choice. For women that are choosing to have an abortion, if at all possible, it's connecting to that, whatever stage of development that baby is in, that embryo, that fetus is in, to discuss, like, this is not something that I can do. It is not the right timing. It's not the best for me. It will not be the best for you. So that you're in that agreement in some way, even if it's energetically, even if you don't feel that you get a response back, you're accountable to that living being to say, this isn't going to work. You honor them. Some women don't have that. They don't even know that. They're not trained to do that. It's just that when you're on a spiritual level, that's how I see it, is if you can complete the transaction because you're ending the contract in some way, then it needs to be included. Everybody needs to be included.
So am I understanding it right that the being can choose to come only for a short while, and it can be their own choice that they are aborted?
Yes. There's a consciousness in that embryo that we don't take consideration about. I would imagine if there's something happening in mom's body, she's an alcoholic, she's a drug addict, she's whatever else, there's those moments of choice. Do I even want to be here because it's going to affect my physical? Or is there foresight, whether that's in the individual being that is coming in or the guidance system that says, if you hang out in here and mom chooses to have you, what might happen in your life is that you may be a benefit to others. So you may come in compromised in some way, but it's your choice as far as, can you be a benefit to others? Can you do something that you still want to do without saying, okay, I want to be aborted, or spontaneous abortions, or I'm out of here.
Right. And actually, I think before the question of can I choose to come in and die, there is the question, do I choose my parents? And I believe you already answered that by explaining your experience.
Yeah, and my mother chose me too. Like, I know that was something that was an agreed upon contract that we had in me coming in here. I always felt wanted. My big thing is, you become visible, you start to speak out, you take your first breath or whatever, you're going to get your head chopped off.
And can you say something about the purpose of a very short incarnation? Do they help their parents, or do their parents help these very short incarnations, these beings? Or do they get to bring an energy code or a message, something to Earth that they don't need maybe much more time than just a few weeks or months for?
Well, I think there's always something there because of the impact. I was aware when I was teaching anatomy and physiology around the endocrine system and fertility, that the old statistics, and I don't know if they still hold true, but 7 out of 10 pregnancies are twins. So we come in, a lot of us come in with this energy, and then we're separated from it because one doesn't make it, or it gets absorbed, or it's not fully formed, or whatever that is. I believe that there's so much that we can gather from how we feel about whether we choose to have an abortion, or what we feel about having a miscarriage or having several miscarriages. It's a ripple effect. It's not only with the mother. It's like, how does the father get involved in that? Does it make them stronger? Do they choose differently? Does it have such an impact on their life that this being coming in knows that if I leave at a few months or a few weeks old, I offer that couple something. I offer that family something that they might not experience in some way. And it's not to provide separation or anger or whatever, but maybe there's something that needs to work through with them that they don't even know, because you're coming from a different perspective.
And it would seem to me that on occasion, maybe not every single time, but that the short lives of these beings would bring a light message to the mother or the father or the grandparents that are particularly connected to that they would have to be messengers of a kind. Does that seem true for you, Darlene?
Yeah, Not only that, but I've worked with women who've either had to have an abortion or chose to, or they had several miscarriages. And sometimes that energy or that being, that soul level keeps coming back until they get it right. And getting it right means that I can come to fruition because whatever that was. So I'm just making this piece up. So say that baby comes in or that energy, that beingness, the soul level comes in, and they've tried it 2 times and the mom's body doesn't hold it. So they're a miscarriage. By the time they come in the 3rd time and it is corrected in whatever way that is, mom is doing something different. There's a different energy. Maybe that baby's body is stronger with a conception, right? With the original egg and sperm. So maybe that is coming in stronger. By the time that child is born, they're loved maybe even more. It's that the will is really strong in all of us, hopefully. Coming in, even if it's for a short period of time, it may set the tone or the stage for something more because I'm going to keep trying till I'm here.
When I'm going back to my experience with the father who has crossed over, it sounds like you are saying if a crossed over soul is just taking on the job of looking after these beings with short incarnations, that's fantastic. And there is no need to go to the eternal light. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, it's not like he's not choosing to stay there. Maybe he went through his accountability, or maybe he's an evolved soul that knows everything that he's done on the moment that he passes. And so it's a very short, like, okay, we're just going paperwork, right? We're just doing a little bit of paperwork because you're ready. Would he go to the light? No, that feels like it's more separate. He's going into what's next for me. He's going into, I want to learn this. He might have been accountable for everything, but then he comes back or he wants to stay here and not go into the galactic field because he likes what he wants to do. I don't think the process is different. He's not stuck here. It sounds like what he said to you is, this is my job and I'm going to do my job.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I come away with is that there's no one way. We humans, we keep wanting to do this binary thing. This is the way, and it's the one way, and it's the right way, and oh, this other way is the wrong way. And in fact, there are a million ways. I feel broadened by the idea that this white light, this white space might be something that you can reach in a moment, or that you have to take, some time to review your Akashic record or whatever it is that's happening in that space, but that we all get there, and the choice to be made in the middle of it and in the whole process of it. I think I have believed that choice is only an earthly thing. But that we all have choice all the time, no matter what dimension we're in. Well, if there are multi-dimensions that I am currently in, then there are multiple levels of choices that are being made all the time. It really blows the whole binary thing right out of the water for me.
And it's all about freedom, right?
Right.
This spirit needs to be free of whatever you've just created when you pass. And when you're free of that, especially this timeline that we've been talking about, the timeline that is focusing on getting us out of the karmic loop, is that when we leave, to not say, oh, our choice is we have to go back because we did this wrong, right? I did this to this person or whatever. That accountability is much more broader when we leave now, so that we're more free in walking into that white space, that galactic library, that place of choice. We're more free to say, okay, the karmic place, I healed that, or I dealt with that, or, I'm going to do it this way. Those options that we have no idea what they could be to heal karma, that we don't have to come back into that. We're cleaned up in that white space. If we choose to come back, that's a whole other story, but we don't have to.
I actually feel a deep release or a relief right now, because a part of my brain, I think, just understood another layer of the freedom we have, and how it's all about the individual and not a generalization of what it is always, how it always has to be, and how it is about direct revelation. That's what it really comes down to. This offers the freedom. And I'm just very grateful for you, Darlene, to open up that door for me right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I don't ever take credit for me doing it, but thank you.
Is there anything anyone has to say before I do the announcements for the day?
I want to say that the questions were things that I hadn't thought about being in this physical form, other than what I told you about my own life experience. When the beings that I work with or the evolved, I was getting informed of things that I hadn't really thought about. That in between state of these, the embryos and those that have chose to have only short timelines, they're like in an incubator, acknowledging what had happened to them so that they can move on, but they're not in the same process as everybody else because there's little accountability. I always learn something new in this.
Me too. I think this is a perfect place for us to end today. I want everyone to know that we have Cosmic Traveler live sessions. They happen on the third Sunday of each month. The next one will meet on May 21st, 2023. To attend that meeting, please go to soulunion.com and contact Darlene directly, and she will then send you a link to attend. The Cosmic Travelers also have a Facebook page. Search for it in the group section, which is usually over on the left of your Facebook page. You can learn more about Isha at www.spiral-song.com, and you can reach me at livingwellbeing.net.
Thank you for having me.
It was great having you, Isha.
Thanks so much, everybody.